I've been thinking about this for a while, and I didn't want to rush into talking about it because it didn't feel like one of those moments that needed instant commentary. This wasn't loud news or a dramatic announcement. It was quieter than that. SB19 just started feeling different. Not in a way that says they changed who they are, but in a way that feels like something finally settled into place. What really caught my attention was how they kept appearing on people's timelines without actively pushing anything. You scroll, not really looking for them, and suddenly there's an old performance clip. Or someone casually mentioning a song from years ago. Or a non-fan asking, "Why does this group sound like that?" And that's when it hits you. None of this feels like promotion. It feels organic. It feels like SB19 has reached a point where people bring them up naturally without being told to. And that's rare because usually when artists trend, there's a very clear reason. A comeback, a viral challenge, something engineered to grab attention fast. But this feels slower, deeper. It feels like people are talking about SB19 because they want to, not because they're supposed to. And that kind of relevance can't be manufactured. It only happens when an artist has lived long enough in people's minds to become part of conversation instead of content. You can see that same pattern in how people talk about their music. Streaming milestones come up, sure, but the tone is never robotic. It's emotional. People don't talk about numbers like they're defending stats. They talk about memories, about phases of their life, about songs that stayed with them longer than expected. When Go Up plays, it doesn't feel like a debut anymore. It feels like belief, like stubborn confidence, like choosing to move forward even when nobody was watching yet. Mappa isn't something people play casually. They prepare for it because it brings out gratitude, guilt, love, and responsibility all at once. And DAM doesn't ask for attention. It demands it. You feel it before you fully understand it. And that's when you start wondering, do people stream SB19 because they're already fans, or do they become fans because the music keeps finding them at the right moments? Because there's a difference between supporting an artist and being emotionally attached to their work. And SB19's listeners sound attached. That attachment explains why so many people didn't discover SB19 in order. A lot of fans met them backwards. Through a random concert clip that felt too intense to ignore. Through a fan cam where the vocals cut through the noise. Through a reaction video where someone clearly didn't expect much and then suddenly had to pause. And then that person ends up listening to a song released years ago and wondering why it feels so current. That doesn't happen if the music is shallow. That happens when the themes are broad enough to grow with the listener. That's why Gento didn't disappear after going viral. Underneath the confidence, there's identity. And identity doesn't expire. And at some point, this conversation naturally moved beyond the fandom. That's where international audiences come in, especially K-pop fans. Because the tone shifted. The reaction stopped being polite curiosity and started becoming genuine surprise. The question wasn't, who are they anymore? It became, why do they sound like that? And that question matters because it comes from respect. SB19 doesn't perform the way people expect idol groups to perform. They don't rely heavily on backing tracks. They don't sacrifice vocals for choreography. When they sing, you hear them clearly. When they move, the vocals are still there. And for audiences used to hyper-polished performances, that honesty can be shocking in the best way. It forces you to listen instead of just watch. That difference became impossible to ignore during ACON 2025. That performance didn't spread because of flashy staging or dramatic moments. It spread because people kept asking the same question over and over again. Are they really singing live like that? And the answer was obvious. Yes. Stable, controlled, expressive. You could hear breath, effort, intention. International fans noticed immediately. K-pop fans noticed immediately. And what stood out was how often people talked about vocals first. Not visuals, not outfits. Vocals. Because vocals expose truth. If you trace this back a little further, you can see the seed being planted during the Asia Artist Awards in 2023. That was the first time many international viewers paused instead of scrolling past. The performance ended and people replayed it. They clipped it. They looked SB19 up. Not because they were told to, but because something lingered. That stage wasn't about stealing attention. It was about presence, about saying, this is how we sound, this is how we perform, and we belong here. What's interesting is how K-pop fans react after that initial shock. Because they're not easy to impress. They've seen excellence, precision, spectacle. So when they react strongly to SB19, it's usually because something feels unfamiliar in a good way. Most of the time, it's the vocals, not just technique, but honesty. You hear humanity in their performances. And then comes the realization that SB19 isn't trying to be K-pop. They're standing beside it. And that's when comparison stops and curiosity begins. That same trust shows up whenever SB19 hints at new music. Fans don't panic. They don't demand. They observe. They analyze. They connect ideas. That didn't happen by accident. SB19 taught their audience that details matter, that nothing is random. So anticipation doesn't feel anxious. Silence doesn't feel like neglect. It feels intentional. And when music finally arrives, it feels like a continuation of a conversation, not just another release. You feel this mindset in their concerts too. SB19 concerts don't feel disposable. Fans don't just say they attended a show. They say something changed. Especially when people talk about the trilogy, they talk about growth, reflection, closure. Each concert feels like a chapter ending properly, and that takes intention and honesty. Even awards feel different now. There was a time when awards felt heavy, like proof SB19 needed. Now they feel like documentation. They accept, they thank, and they move forward. There's no desperation anymore. That quiet confidence isn't complacency, it's security. And that's why this doesn't feel like SB19's peak. Peaks are loud and unstable. This feels like ground, solid ground. SB19 isn't chasing relevance anymore. They're choosing direction, pace, and legacy. And maybe years from now, we'll look back and realize this was the moment everything quietly shifted. And the wild part, we're watching it happen right now. And I think this is where everything really clicks for me, because when you zoom out and look at all of this together, it stops feeling like a coincidence. It stops feeling like a lucky streak or a temporary wave. It starts to feel like intention, like SB19 finally reaching a point where they're not reacting to the industry anymore, but responding on their own terms. Because when artists are still in survival mode, everything feels urgent. Every release has to prove something. Every performance has to outdo the last. Every award has to mean more than the one before it. But that's not the energy SB19 has right now. What they have feels calmer, more deliberate, like they finally trust their own foundation enough to slow down and choose instead of chase. And I think that's why international audiences are reacting the way they are. Not because SB19 is loud, but because they're confident. Not because they're trying to impress, but because they're present. There's something very grounding about watching artists who know who they are. It reads differently on stage, sounds different in their voices. Even the silence between releases feels intentional instead of empty. You can feel it in the fandom too. There's excitement, yes, but there's also patience. There's trust. People aren't panicking. They're not constantly asking, what's next, in a fearful way. They're waiting, but comfortably, and that only happens when an artist has proven over time that they won't waste that trust. And maybe that's why this era feels so different to me. It doesn't feel like a peak. Peaks are loud, peaks are unstable, peaks burn fast. This feels like ground, solid ground, the kind you build a long future on. The kind where whatever comes next doesn't feel rushed but earned. I keep thinking that years from now, people might look back at this period and say, that was the moment things settled. Not because SB19 suddenly became something else, but because they fully became themselves. And the world finally caught up. So yeah, this wasn't meant to be a think piece or a hot take or anything like that. This was just me trying to put into words why SB19 feels different lately, why watching them right now feels special, and why it feels like we're witnessing something that won't fully make sense until much later. And honestly, sorry for this long yap. I really am. I just wanted to get these thoughts out of my head and into a video, and it just so happens that it's freaking 2 in the morning. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my brain ramble at an ungodly hour. I just really love observing artists in moments like this, and SB19, this feels like one of those moments.